set.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. All board members are present, and I'd like to welcome our student board member reps, Kate McDonald, Tabitha Sheedy, and Kira Perry. So we're excited to have you join us. Thank you. First up is review and approval of the September 26th public meeting minutes. Any edits?
Motion to accept the September 26th meeting minutes.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention,
Abstain.
motion carries. The next official board meeting will be October 24th at Canterbury Elementary School. First up is public communication and correspondence. Anyone from the public? Okay. Student presentation.
We're going to put the boys and girls right here, so this will be a dual kind of look back and forth between the screen and where they're standing here, just in the interest of room.
Yep.
Okay, if you stand right there, okay, I think that would be great. So I'm Kim Week, and I currently teach kindergarten here at Canterbury Elementary School. I've been here since about 2004 or so. I'd like to introduce Elkin Mee, who's one of our fourth graders, and Gabe Rockwell, who's one of our second graders, his sister Kenna Rockwell, who's also a second grader, and Hazel Rivera, who's a fifth grader. And they're going to do a presentation for you about our outdoor learning opportunities that we have here at CES. And they're going to take you through the history starting in around 2012, 2013. So while they're reading, I'm going to show you some pictures up there. And Kenna's going to be our first one with a nice big voice, okay? Go ahead, honey.
This evening, we are presenting the way CES students can learn outdoors. The main areas are the Withdrawal Garden, the Garden Club, growing and selling pumpkins, the CES walking trail, snowshoeing, and the outdoor classroom.
The beginning of the vegetable gardens. Students began growing vegetables at CES in May of 2013. There were 8 raised beds. There was a tumbler for the compost. During the next 2 years, groundhogs found the garden and started eating.
So I'll have you stop for a minute because we had a little bit of technical difficulty here. So this is starting prior to 2015, so this was the year 2013. We had 8 raised beds out there. We had a couple of parent volunteers who came and built the beds, and some kids helped them. And we had no fencing or anything around it. And we started with the garden club also helping. We were able to get a composter to do some composting beginnings. But as they mentioned, the groundhogs found us because we now had a food source. So we had a problem that we needed solving. And then we'll go to Kenna.
Mrs. Week's son, Carl, planned to manage a fence building project for the Eagle Scout project. In 2015, students K to 5th raised money for the Adders and Reed Boy Scout troop. 196 members, leaders, and parents built the fence over the weekend. 2 more raised beds were added for a total of 10 beds. The PTO gave us a greenhouse. There are 6 former CES students
In the top photo. Okay, so here's some more of the garden. So this was my son Carl's Eagle Scout project to build the fence out back around the garden. And the thing that was really neat is, I know the picture's kind of small for you, but these 6 individuals right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are all former CES students that came back to do this as part of the scout troop and said we want to give back and we want to build a fence for the current students so that they'll have something to protect their garden with. And then that was the fence after it was completed.
Each
Okay.
grade, students take turns weeding the raised beds and get them ready for planting. They also add weeds and grass clippings to the compost bin. Student council members take turns overseeing the food waste compost bucket collection at lunchtime. The bucket gets emptied into the spinner in the garden.
Hey, Gabe?
Tending the garden. Once the garden is weeded and ready, it is time to plant classes and
Sign up.
sign up to plant a bed orchard. This year there were 11 first graders who met with Mrs. Week during lunch recess in May and July to weed and water the seedlings. It was very hot and keeping the plants watered was important.
Students who are in the summer learning program at CES also help out during the time they are here in July. They weed and water this summer. They also gather data on the types of and amounts of weeds they saw, as well as how the vegetables were growing. On July 15th, our vegetable garden was part of a garden tour organized by Canterbury United Community Church. It was one of 12 gardens people could tour for the self-guided garden tour. Posters were put up along the fences to show our garden history and progress. From July through October, different vegetables are harvested once they have grown. The zucchini gets shredded and frozen to be made into zucchini bread when school starts again. Beans and squash are frozen for the October harvest supper sweets. Pumpkins for fundraising. Since 2012, CES has had a partnership with Apple Hill Farm in Concord. The owners, Chuck and Diana Souther, generously provide crop space and irrigation.
You got it.
Fourth and fifth graders help to either grow pumpkin seeds in the greenhouse or direct seed at Apple Hill. Harvesting is done in September.
Okay, and before Elkin goes, I just want to point this out. This just touched my heart. These two students right here are former students that I had in 5th grade, and they did pumpkins. They now work at Apple Hill. They are juniors up at the high school, and they're driving around and they're serving customers there, so it comes around again. It's kind of neat. Go ahead, Elkin.
5th grade then runs a business by deciding on the prices and managing the sales table at Open House and the Canterbury Farmers Market. Money raised goes towards the cost of Nature's Classroom in April. In September, the cabbage and some of the carrots are harvested to make into coleslaw for supper at CES Open House. In these photos, this year's 4th grade is making the coleslaw. Our vegetables from the garden are used to make vegetable soup to be served at the Harvest Supper run by 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Families make donations to buy playbills their students have made in art. The money goes to the Loudon Food Pantry and the Friendly Kitchen in Concord.
While we have no photos of the garden club, the garden club members work hard in the fall and again in the spring, doing grounds cleanup and planting. Members look forward to learning about different plants as well as getting their hands dirty in the soil. Snowshoeing. Snowshoeing around the CES grounds and
Woods?
is done during PE class. Mrs. Doucette was able to get
Enough?
enough snowshoes so that a
Whole class.
class can snowshoe at once. Students can look for animals, tracks, as well as how trees and other plants grow in the winter.
Creating a walking trail for CES. Last year, the students in Mrs. Winnie's second grade class helped to clear a walking trail and created a sign for it. The trail is another way students can interact with nature.
After many years of making wish lists and planning, the outdoor classroom is now ready to use. Planning and reading committee has many staff members on it. Mrs. Myers and her family helped put the work into the early September, so the classes can now use it. It is near the edge of the woods behind the baseball fence. We are looking forward to learning about the outdoor classroom.
Okay, so we have lots of opportunities at our school, some going on for years and others brand new to us. And we appreciate you allowing us to come tonight and share those with you. And thank you very much to our 4 students who participated tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to head out in the hallway, please, and girls.
All right, I don't know how we follow that. So student reps are up, so no pressure. Kate, Tabitha, and Kira.
Where would you like me to stand? I don't
You're
know if
fine.
I-
You're
right
good
here.
there.
Okay, so this is our first student report. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Kate McDonald. I am a senior at Belmont High School, and I do live in Canterbury. My partner in this is Madison Liakis, and she is not here tonight, but I am going to go through the report which we wrote together. So first, as student representatives to the school board, our role will be to inform the board of what's happening at Belmont High School and also share the opinion as best we can of the student body. So first, I'm going to just give some general updates of what's happening at our school community right now. First, I'd like to share a little bit about BRASS, which is one of our student body leadership groups. And most of you have met some BRASS members before, as that is the group that worked to change the mascot. Since that process is mostly over, we are working on some new projects. Half of the group is focusing on ways to increase school spirit among the student body involving the new mascot. And the other half of the group is working to recognize our school's history, athletic and otherwise, by reorganizing the sports case in front of the school and creating an exhibit to showcase the history of BHS. The group is working with Mr. Finch, Mr. Bellier, and members of the school community to accomplish those projects. Recently, we had our school's homecoming, which was lots of sports games, lots of school, fundraising for the classes. The Friday before homecoming, we had Unity Day, which is put on by Student Council. There was also a dance and a bonfire for that. Sports updates, our girls varsity volleyball is doing very well. The last time I checked, their record was 8-1, which is very good. Cross-country team is having a great season. They don't have statistics like that I can share, but they do have an athlete who's consistently finishing in the top 10, which is super awesome. The football team was 2-3 as of October 5th, and the golf team also had a great season. The soccer teams had a cool opportunity. They visited the elementary schools and helped coach the up-and-coming soccer players. One of the big topics on the mind of students and board members is discussion around the competency-based grading system. As student representatives, we feel that it is important for the board to consider the importance of student perspective in this discussion. Our role in that will be to figure out how to best involve as many students as possible in that discussion and relay that perspective to the board. At this point in time, what we have seen so far is that students are most concerned with inconsistency and the use of empower. And that is all I have, unless anyone has any questions about anything that I can answer.
I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Can you explain inconsistency and the use of empower? What's that mean?
Sure. So as of right now, Madison and I, with Mr. Finch and Mr. Tercy, have only had about one discussion on it, so I don't have too much information to share yet, but I can tell you that inconsistency is basically just our grading system being used differently by different teachers, which is common in any grading system, and we understand that that's just something that we have to work with, but we have seen that it's perhaps a little bit more than it needs to be. So we're going to try to work with teachers to figure out a way that we can regulate more closely how our grading system works, and then relaying that information to students so that they understand what their expectations are in every class. And then the use of empower is just that a lot of students and teachers and parents find it very difficult to use, and they have a hard time understanding how it's representative of our grades and all of the assignments that we're doing. So if we're going to continue to use empower, we sort of have to figure out how to best figure out how that's going to work for everyone.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Kate?
Thank you.
About from the middle school, I don't know if there's anything you would want to share on behalf of the students at the middle school?
Yeah, my name is Tabitha Sheedy. This is Kira Perry. We are the Belmont Middle School student representatives. As far as I can tell today, we're just going to tell you about a little bit about what's happening at Belmont Middle School currently. And of course, we're going to be delivering things that we think the middle school as a whole needs or thinks on topics. So right now, 5th graders are working on projects and schoolwork and kind of preparing for Camp Cody, which is going to be coming up. 6th graders, would you like to take it?
6th graders are sixth grader have a field trip to Camp Mitina, which is basically ropes course and group activities. And in ELA, they're writing their Halloween project. Halloween writing piece for Eli.
The 7th grade just had a field trip to the rail trail, just walking down that trail in Belmont. In the morning, they did like a little mini field day with all the students, and then walked it in the afternoon right before the buses came. And the 8th grade, no huge field trips have happened yet, but we've just been starting working through all our assignments and getting the year started.
We had a welcome back dance a few days ago, and then there's presentations about digital safety, and there's a new vending machine with new drinks.
Our school store is currently open, and it's going to be open for, I think, another week or so. And all athletics and clubs that go during the fall have already started up, and it's going well so far. And I think that's pretty much all we have.
Any questions for our middle school?
I have a question. What grade are you girls in?
8th.
Both of you? Now, how will you get your information about the other grades? Because I know things are very separated.
We are both in student council, and we have students from all grades in that council. So sometimes, like just week before a school board meeting, we'll kind of just take 5-10 minutes to talk about what each grade is doing. And then we'll kind of write it down and talk about it.
Nice.
Anything else? Thank you. In your packet was Canterbury Elementary School's Parent-Teacher Organization Leadership Report. I don't know if anyone, I don't know if we have anyone here. Okay, I didn't think so, but looks like they have a calendar. Okay.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
I can answer. The Artist in Residence program in the school, what is that?
So usually we contract with an artist, doesn't necessarily have to be local, but tends to be somewhat in the vicinity that comes and focuses on a specific theme based on the artwork that they do, and they incorporate the entire student body in putting together a piece of art that's usually displayed in the school, or if it's a performance, that could be that as well. So any of the performing or visual arts can get encompassed with an artist in residence, and they come and they work, they're engaged with the entire school for a specific duration of time, which could be a couple weeks at a time, with a culminating event at the end.
Thank you.
Belmont never do a tiger program that Plymouth did?
Yeah, we alternate every other year.
Okay, board member reports. Sean?
I guess my only comment would be, I missed the open house at the high school last week. I think if we are sending students to Laconia, we should do a better job of coordinating open houses so that they don't conflict. So students parents or whatever that have students that go to the Hewitt basically had to pick because they were at the same time as well. So we decided, I've been to a couple high school open houses, so I went to the Hewitt, missed the Belmont High School one, but it just seems like something simple that we should be able to fix, moving forward.
I've been sick and having work conferences, so
Yeah, okay.
I haven't had 4 seconds to my name.
Yeah, I get it. Glad you're feeling better, or I should not have would.
Incredibly tired, but yeah.
Okay, good.
So as everyone is aware, last night was the night that we were targeting decision for withdrawal study committee. We reviewed all the information we had this year from the beginning to end, looked at budget information, looked at survey results. We looked at the course comparisons from last year as well as its different types of testing results. And in the end, it was a 5-2 vote to recommend that proceeding with withdrawal to the report of the State Board of Education. There will be a majority report and a minority report submitted. So next steps will kind of determine what happens there.
You said a majority and a minority? So like both sides of it?
Yes, you both get the opportunity to submit your case.
I don't know if you can answer this. I don't remember timelines and next steps. I'm looking to you because I don't know if we may need to get clarification from our attorney, speaking as the Shaker Regional School Board, like what our process is. I don't remember the timelines. I
My
guess
understanding is that the committee has to put forward the reports to the State Board of Education for their review, comes beginning of
November
November.
1st.
Yep. That's the next step.
So last year, we had submitted our report with a request for extension by November 1st. They put us on their December meeting, and then they didn't let us know the answer till January. So it's in their hands once we submit to them.
But I mean, what's the next step after that, if it passes?
If it passes the state board, then it goes to the towns. It would be a ballot for the district as a whole, and then also a separate one for the town of Canterbury. So Canterbury votes twice, once as a town, once as part of the district, and then Belmont would vote once.
So you have to have a whole plan in place by November 1st.
You have to submit a plan for November 1st, yes. So there's some information that we still don't have. The committee felt that by proceeding with this, it would allow them the opportunity to get more concrete, definite numbers from other school districts on things like SAU contract services. So those are all things that are subject to school board approvals. So they'll give us like rough estimates, things like that, but not exact.
It's a hope. I got a million questions. I'll try to keep them. It's a hope to get this on the ballot for March, this March.
If the State Board of Education comes back in time, I know that I believe it's a January deadline to do that. So this is my first time going through this. I know most committees don't make it this far. I have to imagine they're gonna have a lot of questions.
I mean, if the state came back too late to get on the ballot, then it'd be a year out after that.
Unless they do specials, I don't know if that's a
The
possibility.
state wouldn't be late, they would hit their deadline.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're required to hit that deadline because you can't hold up a ballot. And they can't hold up the process for another year. So, once that report is submitted to the state board, it's their responsibility to either push it back for more information or approve it. But bottom line, their first run at it is to make sure that everything that is required in a report is in there. If not, they'll bump it back to the committee to do more work and basically amend their report to have the information in it that they require. But they'll hit their deadline. I'd be very surprised if they did not.
Just like questions, like if we get questions, where are we sending them? I can't answer some of the questions I've got. Like, where do the people go?
So the minutes are on the SAU website. It has all that there. When I do the ones for this week, I'll put in what the next steps are.
And when will the draft plan be public?
So I asked that we try and get everything solidified for our next meeting so that we can go through. So the plan would be to tuition to surrounding towns, and then you have to pick an anchor school. So an anchor school, it would be like one school that you would transport all your students to, and then for any other one, you would have to transport yourself. And the easiest to implement and that the committee wanted to ask would be for Belmont to be the anchor schools.
What I'm saying is when would the draft report that potentially any member of the public, when it goes to the state board.
So when I put my minutes out for the next meeting, it would be there. So we're targeting getting that, at the latest, it would be November 1st. When I sent it last year, I sent it out to everyone else as well the same day.
Okay. I have nothing. Okay. Education report is in our packet. It's information only. As those of you who are new, the law only requires that a family notify at one point in time that they're going to be home educating, so we have no additional information and no requirement. And actually, we're not allowed to do follow-up and find out why and things of that nature. So we can certainly ask Michael questions about it, but my guess is you don't have information, but you might.
Well, just the report itself, you can see the increase in families that are opting for a homeschool program. Back in 17-18, there's 62 total students. As for 23-24, we have 138. You can see the distribution for the different grade levels, as well as the breakout of Belmont and Canterbury students. So we do track this to the best of our ability, and these are based on that initial notification. We have to report this to the state each year as well.
So this is just homeschooling, it's
Mhm.
not,
Just homeschool.
These students, like if they were homeschooling like through a Prendapod or something like that, are those numbers as well? So they're included, so it's not like a necessarily private school, but they could be a Prendapod
Correct.
homeschool.
And that's what we're noticing with the Friendapods. We have an intent to homeschool for the student to participate in the Friendapod.
Any speculation as to why the numbers keep increasing?
No, I think that the education freedom accounts have something to do with it as well. So, because a homeschool family can tap into those state monies to help support their program. I think that has something to do with it, but I couldn't really pinpoint the exact reason. We saw a significant increase clearly when we were dealing with the pandemic, and I think some families haven't come out of that as well. Where you can see a jump in the numbers there in 2021. So I also think there's increased opportunities to be able to provide a homeschool program that weren't there in the past. There's access to educational resources that are right at your fingertips that can help a family work through a homeschool program.
any other questions? Yeah?
You guys want to head out? You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. You're more than welcome, but I'm sure you have homework and other things to do.
It's totally up to you. Feel free to stay or you. So we have a permission to plan for BHS Robotics. And that is up for action.
I'll make a motion to allow or give the permission to plan.
Second.
Any additional discussion for permission to plan? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, motion carries. Permission to plan for the Spanish language international trip. So Nora's planning ahead, love it. Any questions?
Yeah, getting
I
down
don't know if
to it.
he's gonna do it again.
Plenty of time.
Motion to grant permission to plan the Spanish language international trip.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and I think this is
Mhm.
permission to travel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did someone say my name? I missed it.
I think maybe it's a plan.
I said plan, yes, because it says.
Yes, but it's
Okay, permission to travel. I
for
changed.
VHS band.
Oh, that's a different one. I was
Yeah,
gonna
you're
say-
fine.
I'm
You're
sorry.
fine with permission to plan. I was
Okay.
moving on to the next one, which the packet says permission to travel and the agenda says permission to plan. We already approved permission to plan, so this is permission to travel for the VHS band.
Make a motion for allow the beach, you know.
Second.
It's been a long day.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. All right, delegate assembly, proposed resolutions.
There's a lot this year.
Yes.
All right. So the New Hampshire School Board Delegate Assembly is this weekend. As I did last year, I actually enjoyed it. You go, they discuss everything, and then I need to know our position as a board of how you want me to vote.
So do you want to take us through?
Ken, yes. And then we do all 19, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
You will, you'll discuss those at the assembly?
Okay, so the first one is, these are for continuing resolutions for 2022, adopted at the October 2022 Delegate Assembly. So the first one is school districts should be held harmless for pandemic-related reductions in enrollment that may negatively impact differentiated aid. Differentiated aid should be based upon free and reduced numbers from pre-pandemic enrollment or current enrollment, whichever is greater. The New Hampshire School Board Association will make this a priority in its lobbying efforts. Do we still want to support this, or? I don't know.
I think it's pretty telling that is brought up as a resolution. And if I personally was representing a district, I'd be abstaining from that vote. Because I think it's just, it's districts wanting to alleviate liability. When districts made choices that not everybody agreed with.
So with these, do the continuing resolutions get voted on one at a time?
I don't know what we did
I don't
pass the
remember.
continuing ones. I think they were all together.
Yeah, they usually, the vote usually entails the proposed resolutions.
Okay, so skip over these ones?
Yeah, I think you can, over
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
I asked
They
about
won't,
that.
they won't spend a lot of time on those.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna write to number 8. All right, this one was submitted by Oyster River Cooperative School District. Proposed resolution, the New Hampshire School Boards Association oppose any policy affecting curriculum that enables some parents, guardians, and/or other individuals or organizations to circumvent already extant local school board review policies and exposes teachers to civil suits and sanctions at the state level. The New Hampshire School Board Association does not recommend supporting this. However, when I read this, to me, it was the divisive concepts, and that they're trying to say that the New Hampshire School Board Association should not support anything that's gonna bypass our own review process and put teachers at potential liability.
So we don't have to, yeah, we're just this is information,
Info,
right?
yeah, just give
So
me an
Randy
idea.
just needs a sense of what we would want her as a board to support this resolution or not. And the School Boards Association, I think, was also saying, because it's so broadly written, was that part of the concern as well?
It said it would require them to predict what types of policies are enabling to parents, et cetera, making complaints or expose the staff to any kind of
I
litigation.
think historically, we've gone with like whatever the School Boards Association has recommended, their recommendation. But I think this is an opportunity that if some of us disagree, we should talk about that, so that Randy has direction, you know, when it comes to voting.
So we actually voted against them last year.
What's that?
We went against their recommendation last year.
Not all,
Not
well,
all of them, but
yeah, I mean,
on one.
usually
Not
we
one.
go with them, but there was one,
Yeah.
I know there was one that we definitely, there just one? I can't remember if there were more than one.
I think it was just,
So, thoughts? I'm fine with not supporting it because of how broad it is and, but I could be swayed, I'm just,
so I'd like to know Jill's input on this, because you were also a teacher.
Yeah, I wouldn't support this.
Okay.
okay. Any issues with? Okay, maybe some-
All right, we're going for
We're
it. Do
moving
not
on,
support.
Randy.
All right. Number 9. This was submitted by the Dover School Board. The New Hampshire School Board Association affirms the qualification of school librarians to research and select appropriate digital and printed material for school libraries. Recognizing that marginalized groups have been historically underrepresented in school libraries, literacy collections should offer student information that provides a balance of ethnic, political, religious, and cultural views. Further, library material should represent diverse points of view, provide a global perspective, stimulate critical thinking skills, and meet the interest, abilities, and learning styles and information needs of the learning community. The New Hampshire School Board Association recommends alternative language. In their alternate resolution is that they affirm the qualifications of school district staff to research and select appropriate digital and printed materials for schools. Literary and curricular collections should offer students information that provide a balance of cultural values. Further, literary collections should represent diverse points of view, provide a global perspective, stimulate essential thinking skills, and meet the interests, abilities, and learning styles and information needs of the learning community.
It's not that much different, right? I
It
think they
goes from
cleaned it up.
library staff to staff,
Yeah.
and I feel like theirs is actually more broader than the other one.
I'm fine with the proposed.
The proposed one or or the alternative?
The proposed one by the school boards.
You mean the alternative language?
Alternative language, sorry.
Yeah. I'm fine with it too.
Proposed alternative.
Other thoughts?
So, yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Or with the alternative resolution.
All right. Number 10, submitted by Raymond School Board. Proposed resolution to include an estimate of actual food service costs for the upcoming year in preparation of the upcoming default budget. The School Board Association does not support this one. They believe it is too narrow. It says there are potentially numerous areas of school district budget that cannot be known ahead of time and require the school board to make an educated guess as to what actual costs would be.
I agree with that, actually.
Wouldn't a district in just generic good faith try to estimate those costs anyway?
Well, you can't for the default budget, correct? You can't
Right,
guess.
but your food service is supposed to be a self-funded service anyway.
Right.
So why you would even put that in the default, because your revenues are gonna offset your expenditures, except for what the board puts in as a contribution. So I don't even understand why they have that as part of the default budget.
Right, I guess that's why I was asking the question. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either.
It says the proposed resolution would allow school districts to include the estimate of true cost to feed all students for the upcoming year in preparation for the default budget.
So that would be if they're not planning on having parents pay for it, I don't know. It may be, you can do a waiver now, and you can tell the state that you want to feed all of the children in your district, and that the general fund is gonna pick up the piece, and maybe that's what they're talking about for the default budget. It would be a very big number.
Do you have a question, Alice?
No, I'm just thinking.
Debbie's got me thinking about.
Yeah, and I don't know why that would be a default anyway, because that's, unless they took a vote at the district, it wouldn't be part of the default budget, I
Right.
wouldn't think.
Okay, so we wouldn't support it, correct, is what I'm hearing?
I don't see any reason to,
Right.
or not, but I'm just.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah.
Do you want me to like see how the conversation
in
goes?
order
If someone
to
comes up
move
with, like,
along,
some-
I'm trying to,
I'll support.
huh?
I'm going with the School Boards Association.
Yes.
I'll support.
All right, so not support.
Correct.
All right, moving on. Number 11, Monadnock Regional School Board. The proposed resolution is that the School Boards Association will support any legislation that intends to streamline the recruiting, credentialing, and hiring of certified teachers from other states. This resolution is in support of both the state of New Hampshire credentialing laws as well as the interstate compact and reciprocity between New Hampshire and neighboring states. This resolution also supports changes to reduce barriers to teachers from other states who wish to transfer retirement savings from their current retirement program into the New Hampshire retirement system. The School Board Association supports an alternative language. And I'm trying to look for the difference. They took out Struten.
I think it's a great idea to be able to transfer retirement savings from one state into another, because when I transferred into the state of New Hampshire, I was not able to.
The New Hampshire School Board Association is pointing out other licensed school staff as well as
Ah.
teachers.
Yeah, that's good.
You have such a good eye for detail.
Thank you.
So how can this resolution bypass RSA statutes regarding retirement system? Wouldn't that be separate legislation?
So it's just that the New Hampshire School Board Association will support any
Any-
legislation.
Right, so it would be, it's not introducing a bill or anything,
Right.
it's supporting if anything, right?
Yeah, so if anything comes up, they would support it.
So when the School Boards Association goes and potentially testifies on a bill, they will state that they have a resolution to either support the bill or not support the bill, and for what reason, and that's why it's written. Because they're speaking on behalf of
Yeah.
their membership.
Right.
I
It
support it.
doesn't mean it's necessarily gonna happen with the retirement
Correct.
system.
I support it,
Do you support the alternative language to
Yeah.
include all?
yes,
All right.
definitely.
All right, number 12, also Monadnock. Will support legislation that clarifies the responsibility and accountability of parents, guardians of students who do not conduct themselves according to local laws or school policies. New Hampshire School Board Association will also support legislation that clarifies the protocols for school districts to follow in disciplining students and holding parents, guardians accountable.
So this had alternative language.
This one does. Very brief paragraph, I like it. The New Hampshire School Board Association urges the New Hampshire legislator and Department of Education to clarify the responsibilities, obligations, and rights of school boards and school districts when students do not attend school on a regular basis, are habitually truant, and otherwise do not conform to the rules and regulations of the district.
I like the proposed language better. It
So-
specifically identifies parents' responsibility.
So I did too until I read the rationale. And it said upon conversations with the Monadnock School Board, their primary intent was related to truancy and disruptive student behavior that negatively impacts other students.
And so why wouldn't you like the new language? I'm just curious, I'm just trying to get it.
You mean
The
proposed versus alternative?
the alternative, you liked the proposed
I
language?
like proposed, yep.
Oh, I liked the alternative.
School Boards Association proposed alternative resolution, it takes out the intent of holding parents accountable for, I mean, that's the purpose of, I think they flipped it a little bit, they made it too broad. I think the wording is good, however, it's not gathering the intent from the Monadnock Regional School Board. I'd be more curious to see where the conversation goes around the assembly on this one, quite honestly. But
So we can choose to support alternative language unless the conversation sways me to go otherwise, or vice versa. Which is what happened with the lunch stuff last year.
I'm fine with, I mean, I think we all agree with the
The
intent,
intent of it is
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about language.
I don't think the alternative, the proposed alternative is strong enough.
Right.
The other one is not, is,
Very strong.
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't quite gather what it needs.
Right.
So there needs something in between, if you can
Maybe
come
they
up with something.
have better, like some, yeah, in between.
Okay.
Conceptually, I support
Yeah.
it.
I agree.
Well, I mean, I'll use the example, I mean, I got put in charge of Saturday detention a million years ago for truancies and stuff, and the only thing that I could come up with is to basically, once they hit that threshold of what they were getting on Saturday, mom or dad had to be there. And if mom or dad weren't there, then they would immediately go to the next step. Our truancies to first and second period dropped, by like 80% within 3 weeks. And it was a simple, simple litmus test of, holding mom and dad, accountable for that. And, I mean, it was magic in how quickly something like that worked. So, I mean, I'm all for holding parents accountable for their kids' actions. I mean, it happened a long time ago.
All right, so we
You have enough?
support both, but we're looking for in the middle. All right. I like it. 13, Monadnock School Board. The New Hampshire School Board Association will support legislation that creates flexibility for town moderators and moderators of cooperative school districts to postpone school district elections in the event of inclement weather. SBA Board of Directors supports this one. I think we all support this one.
Yeah, I kind of said, what's the point, no one shows up anyway, but yeah, it makes sense.
All right. 14, Manchester. The Manchester Board of School Committee proposes that the language of Resolution 2-C be amended and strengthened as follows to increase funding significantly for building aid. That the New Hampshire School Board Association supports additional appropriations under RSA 198-15A4, the state's building aid program, to adequately fund all necessary school facility needs. This program has effectively created local and state partnerships in financing school buildings improvements that benefits all students of New Hampshire, and which should be considered a significant part of fulfilling the state's constitutional duty to provide an adequate education to all children. The
Yes.
rationale behind this one was the current $50 million is not nearly adequate to the needs of New Hampshire schools. All right, we all support. 15, also Manchester. We propose strengthening the language of the continuing resolution 2-S, advocate for funding for universal pre-K programming and related facilities costs. School Board Association Board of Directors supports with alternative language to say that New Hampshire SBA supports additional state adequacy aid for public pre-kindergarten. Ooh. I've learned a lot about adequacy aid in the past couple weeks. And I know it's not enough. So I like the first one.
Fine, whatever you decide.
Proposed alternative.
You want alternative?
Sean wants alternative, Randy wants regular. Adequacy would be a start.
Adequacy would be a start.
since they fund nothing.
But it's only half of what they
Right, so
do.
I mean, I guess I don't even understand the purpose of the resolution, because it's not gonna happen. Even if the resolution, goes in, it's not gonna be funded, and so what's the point?
Well, so true, but it's more about, I personally happen to agree with you on that probably, but it's more like so that they can go and testify, so if a universal pre-K bill comes up, they would support whatever, the School Boards Association would go and testify related to what the members' resolution, whatever passes, correct?
I'm fine with the alt. You're right, it's a start.
I'm going for a start.
Almost there. All right, 16. Manchester. We support advocating for states' sustainability incentives, opportunities, and targeted goals for energy efficiency and the expansion of renewable energy. Resources for electric school buses and capital funding dedicated to sustainability-related building construction, renovation, and infrastructure. School Board Association Board of Directors does not support. They state, while this may be an important issue for some school boards, the proposal does not necessarily relate to school board governance or relate directly to education.
I agree.
I agree as well.
It's the easiest one we have done.
Yeah.
All right, 17, also Manchester. We propose advocating that Medicaid be used as a primary calculator for free and reduced lunch numbers for New Hampshire school districts. Advocating for the state to join the Medicaid Direct Certification Program. Advocate that Medicaid to schools be revised to allow greater flexibility and sign-off by guidance counselors. Reduce administrative burden on localities and fund an increase in per-service fees. The Board of Directors has alternative language. They are recommending it be split into 3 resolutions. The first one is that they support legislation and rulemaking that requires the state of New Hampshire and New Hampshire Department of Education to participate in the federal Medicaid Direct Certification Program to calculate eligibility more accurately for free and reduced lunch programs. The second is they support legislation and rulemaking that help make Medicaid to schools funding more accessible for school districts by allowing greater flexibility and sign-off, and by supporting implied parental consent and a clearly defined and executable opt-out process for accessing public benefits for students with disabilities. And they will support legislation and rulemaking that proposes an increase in per-service fees under Medicaid programs.
The alternative language works for me.
As somebody that's gone to the meetings, I don't necessarily like the idea of 3 more resolutions, but it's fine.
Well, you provide more paths for billing, Medicaid, Medicare. They're just gonna adjust the funding schedule to meet their needs. I mean, I'm sorry for being a Debbie Downer, on this stuff, but, sorry.
Poor Debbie.
But again, I mean, I question, I question the point, I mean, because we know how states operate, and, I don't know. I mean, I'd say, we'll support either of them, but.
Okay. All right, almost there. 18, this was submitted by the New Hampshire School Board Association Board of Directors. They want to remove language that they support the efforts of the National School Board Association to provide more local governance and flexibility by working with federal officials to ensure passage of all federal legislation and regulations consistent with this goal. This was a hot topic last year because there was an incident with the National School Board Association where they sent a letter to the DOG that not everybody agreed with.
So we withdrew.
We did withdraw.
New Hampshire, us specifically.
So this just removes language, which I thought we did this last year.
I support that.
All right,
Agree.
and last but certainly not least, I feel like this is the same one we had last year. It was committed by Concord School Board, and that they will advocate to the New Hampshire State Legislature to create a universal and subsidized meal program for New Hampshire public school students. The board of directors said it was submitted after the deadline. So they're not acting on the proposal and it is not making a recommendation on this proposal, but it could be debated and brought up.
And it was last year.
It was, which is interesting because we settled this last year and everyone wanted free lunch for all.
That was the outcome, right?
Yeah, that was, I believe so. If I recall correctly, I have to go back and check.
And so everybody truly believed that it was the state's responsibility to feed all students?
It was the last one and people get tired.
So not only do I firmly believe that it's not their state's responsibility to feed all students, nor is it a district's responsibility to fund and feed every single student. There's only, you know, we can't take the cradle of grave philosophy.
Well, any other thoughts?
Sorry, I get opinionated on this
Yeah, that's
legislative
okay.
stuff.
So do we support universal and subsidized meal program for all, or?
I say no, but I'm only one guy.
Sorry?
I said I say no, but I'm only one guy, or one member.
Jeff says no.
Okay, we got 2 no's, any yeses? All right, we're going with the no.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all very much. I look forward to telling you all about it.
The recommendations of Appendix B, since my computer's dead. Yes, I'm apparently not prepared.
You can
Do you
share.
want a charger? Well, I have a charger, but there's no place to plug in. It's fine, I did. Oh, have you done it? Okay. Randy, hope it goes well.
Thank you.
So, Appendix B, just to, particularly for anyone who's new, and just as a refresher, so Appendix B, and Debbie, if I say it incorrectly, I'm sure you'll let me know. Okay, so Appendix B is part of the contract, part of the bargaining unit, for the teacher's bargaining unit. And there are, anything that's listed in Appendix B, we budget for. And it's there's job descriptions, and they're placed based on their job descriptions onto Appendix B. So we approve charters, so when a student or a teacher or another staff member wants to form a club, if there's enough people, they write a charter. The charter is signed off by a principal and the superintendent, and then it comes to the board for approval. That is not what's called a stipend in position, so it's not budgeted for. Nobody receives a stipend for it. It's kind of like, okay, you can run a club or something, but we're trying to figure out like, when would we budget for it? So then once a year, the Appendix B committee meets. And that is Debbie, a member of the board, the bargaining, the CBA has a representative or someone is invited from all of the schools. And we meet. And Debbie.
Administrator.
And an administrator. And Debbie outreaches to all of the principals to find out like the status of any of the charters, what we're wondering about, those types of things. And then the committee reviews all of the information that's come in and makes recommendations for either removal, getting placed on the Appendix B, basically so we would budget for it. And then the Appendix B committee makes recommendations to the board. Does that process, does anyone have questions about the process?
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we talked about how they get added, how they get removed. What if a club is looking to get their stipend increased or decreased?
Same process.
They write a letter, or the principal will write a letter, and the committee reviews that.
So they're all communicated to, they know when they have to do it, like something goes out that says, you know, if you want changes or?
I believe the principals will send it out. We've gotten many requests over the years. And the only other thing that I will add is when the Appendix B committee first started, based on the last, not this past CBA, but the one before, we had to set criteria of what we were going to, and when we were going to determine that a charter would be available to get a stipend. And we said that it had to have been approved for at least one full year before the Appendix B committee met.
Gotcha.
So,
And I will say, which isn't part of the discussion so much tonight, but the Appendix B committee did talk about trying to work with administrators to streamline that process so that teachers were aware, you know, if they wanted to start a charter, when it would be best. Otherwise, you could be, because if something happened right now and a charter was started, so Mr. Finch brought a charter based on something, it would be essentially 2 years before it would be budgeted for, because we wouldn't review it. And actually, you know, if it got approved at the end of October, the committee meets in September. The club wouldn't have been chartered for a year.
Is there any
So essentially, we're
consideration
asking
to
them
changing?
volunteer for almost 2 years, so that would be.
Right.
Potentially,
Yeah, so we're trying to streamline it, so that was part of the discussion, just so people are aware. One, making sure everybody knew where the job descriptions were, so the job description isn't dependent on a person, it's dependent on what the actual job is. And then also making sure people knew, like, if you are gonna start a club at the beginning of the year, you know, to start talking about that in the spring.
Get your charter in the spring.
Is there any consideration to having the meeting, I think you had it as September 30th,
Mhm.
to having it a little bit later?
So we were doing it for budget development purposes, and October is when I start getting the budget together.
Yeah, but we're still talking about stuff in December.
We could.
I just, if you're basically saying, better start thinking about this in the spring, because by the time school starts, you're almost out of time.
Yeah, I agree, I mean, that's something we could look at it more, it all had to do with,
If you want to stick with that full.
Yeah, the CBA specifies the September 30th date
Yeah.
for the Appendix B committee. Has to meet by September 30th.
And the purpose of that wording was to make sure you can get the budget numbers in.
Right.
So if a group of kids, let's say over the summer, got into pickleball, came back to school at the beginning of the year, were like, we want to start a pickleball club, and they find a teacher to do it, that teacher would essentially do it for free for 2 years?
Unless they got the charter in to the school board before, you know, if it got approved before the end of September meeting, you know, if it got approved on the first or second meeting in September, it would be considered a full year
but
charter
it
at
still
that
would
point.
be two.
But, yeah, they wouldn't
Yes.
get that year, but it would be proposed, like, let's say it got approved last month. You know, it would not be considered until next September, so then that would go into the 25-26 budget.
The only fix is to take out the year requirement.
So you would want to see the numbers before you, I'm not, I understand, people are volunteering 2 years for free, and that is a lot. So I don't disagree with that, but if we fund every charter,
There's several charters that are not running. They've been approved and they're not running.
so,
I mean, if you're gonna leave it into a year, then no matter where you place that meeting, you're still gonna potentially run into a year and a half or, you know, or 2 years. I mean, it's almost like it's the cost of doing business.
And I will say it's a lot better than it was in the past, putting basically these deadlines in play, because we did have people volunteering to run these clubs for more than 2 years.
3, 4, 5
That
years.
were not getting paid, so we wanted to make sure that there's at least deadlines put into the collective bargaining agreement to make sure that everybody's aware that this is the process. We also put the wording in there for the formation of the committee, very specific who should be on that committee.
But it is a lot that we're asking teachers or other staff members or somebody outside to do. Just so people are aware of the process, we can talk more about that. I don't know, I'm looking at you because I don't know the CBA all off the top of my head.
Yeah, the
so-
CBA didn't outline the process, it was left up to the committee. And that was based on the committee's discussion about when should we be looking to propose and when is a viable timeframe.
So if we wanna look at that, we could, in terms of how long a charter is in existence before getting placed or funded, essentially.
So for the purpose of this
Yeah.
discussion, we're talking about potential budget impacts, not during this current fiscal year.
This is for the
but for
24-25
budgeting
budget development. Yep.
Correct. So, obviously, I realize it's outlined, but the BHS Gamers Society, that was a charter that's been in existence for more than a year, is still currently active at the high school, so we are recommending it get placed on Appendix B at the DD level, which is all about how much stipend. And then a request was put in for BHS drama director as well as the assistant drama advisor and the music performance advisor. You can see that outlined. Mr. Finch wrote that up. He did outstanding job explaining like why the amount of time, the challenges of finding the different positions, because that was part of the problem, is to find a drama director, they're committing to 2 performances, but performances aren't the same as productions. Because sometimes they're doing, 3 or 4 different showings over a weekend. So we agreed that it should be split and keep it at AA. The assistant drama, you can see it there, as well as eliminating the 2 performances. And then BHS SALT Club Advisor is, they're not a club. And SALT stands for Student.
Athletic Leadership Team.
Yeah.
So I want to say the club is just redundant.
Right.
It's the team club.
So it's removing that. And then BES Garden Club, changing the name to BES Green Club. And they were at a DD position, and we are recommending they move to a CC. And that has to do with they run year round. So the Garden Club at CES runs in the fall and they run in the spring. The Green Club runs year round. And they do recycling and all kinds of things that are green.
So that they would combine those two?
Yeah, I'm confused.
No, they would change the name.
But is there still,
But you just said there was different
I'm
duties and
saying
responsibilities.
CES, so it would be very clear, CES
Oh,
has a garden club.
Sorry.
BES will now have a green club, which includes gardening, but it also includes recycling, composting, things like that. So essentially the job description has changed and it is now Green Club. And because the job description has changed, that's why the move to the CC. So the total increase for that, Debbie has outlined here. And then we also recommended moving 3 clubs who haven't run at all, not funding them as they've not run for several years. And suspension status, in case you're wondering, would mean that if we suspend them, then we wouldn't fund them in the 25-26 budget. So if BMS wanted a computer club next year, it would not be funded because we would have suspended it. So it would have to go back to the Appendix B committee in order for it to be funded. We didn't want to remove some of these things from the charter, from Appendix B completely, because math club and computer club or even a basketball team are things that many schools have, so we didn't want to fully remove them, but it would essentially function that way, because they wouldn't be funded.
And they won't have to rewrite a new charter.
Correct. So the net impact to the budget would be 51,2450. So that is Appendix B's recommendation.
So, you probably said this and I missed it. BHS Music Perform Advisor. 2 performances, recommend eliminating. Okay. I think I understand what that's saying.
It's just the verbiage, not the actual performances, right?
Mhm.
Correct, the music, they only do one musical and one play. So that music performance advisor was for the musical.
So in that list for tonight, where I got confused, it should be CES for Garden Club, not BES.
No, it's
No,
BES
it is
Garden Club,
BES.
we'd like to change the name to BES Green Club. And it's going to be differentiated from the CES Garden Club. The CES Garden Club only operates in the fall and the spring. The BES, what they now have as the Garden Club,
Got it.
goes
Okay.
year round.
That was,
And they do more than
that was
gardens.
painful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming as a committee this is discussed, but say I did a club in the fall and I want to make it a full year. In the fall I met every week, but for the full year I meet every other week. I assume the stipend would be the classification or placement would be the same because technically you're meeting the same amount of days. I assume the committee looks at that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I said the job description isn't about how much a club wants to meet. It's like, what are they actually needing? And apparently BES Green Club, or what was called Garden Club, has expanded for a good chunk of time. So this would mean they have to change their job description so that it's required. So they couldn't do what you're saying. If you're gonna meet once a week and do this for the whole year, that's what they're proposing to do. So what's not supposed to happen, I can't speak to what does happen, but what's not supposed to happen is they say, well, we're now gonna meet once a month in the winter, because if the job description is once a week, that's what's supposed to happen.
Motion to approve the recommendations of the Appendix B committee and include the appropriate budget changes for 2024, 2025.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Okay.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
I just really appreciate the support on that. The theater at BHS, it's really tough to find a director or multiple directors because of the way that they were structured. So your support in that is gonna make it a lot easier to get someone or multiple people, since now there's 2 different seasons interested in that, and we can get a program running much more effectively. So I really appreciate the support on that.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. Just give the board an update, particularly on the preliminary action plan that I presented around competency-based grading and reporting at our last meeting. We started the process of soliciting teacher feedback using that World Cafe style. I know that we've gone through the process at this point of developing questions that are consistent and prompts that are consistent that are being discussed with the staff during staff meetings. I know we've already held one at the middle school and one at the high school. I think the high school was today. And those are being facilitated, those conversations are being facilitated by our teacher leaders for each building. So we're looking forward to having those conversations in all 4 schools, compiling that feedback, and then bringing that to the board for your knowledge base. Also, we are in the process of coordinating a meeting with representatives from Alma at the end of the month to see their capabilities for a learning management system. So that's underway at this point as well. We're still.
What is it expected to give us, or the schools to give us their information on what the leader reports back to as far as competencies go?
We should have the information from all the schools by the end of the month. And then that information will go to our district support team, which is where we originated the questions from. And keep in mind, that's administrators and teachers that are sitting around the table having those conversations. And then once we compile in a format that I can present to the board, you'll have it. So hoping sometime at the beginning of November.
Okay.
Let's see. These past couple weeks, I was able to attend 2 professional development conferences. One is best practices for business operations, and Debbie and I had the privilege of presenting at one of those conferences. For the topic was superintendent and business administrator relationships and the importance of those relationships and making sure our students are getting what they need to be successful. So that was great. Also attended the Kidder Law Conference. If board members have an opportunity to go to that conference, say next year, and then you get the notifications for that. It's a great conference that tackles all types of items that are being discussed by school district lawyers, as well as bills that might have come out of the legislature that impact school districts. And it's a great opportunity to get, if you will, free advice from attorneys based on situations that are addressed in those items that they're discussing. It's a great opportunity. It's always one of my favorite law conferences to go to. So it was great. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we coordinated as a Lakes Region Superintendent group a meeting with all of our local legislators. Well, they were all invited. We invited all House representatives in the region, as well as all the senators in the region, to discuss education in general. So that is tomorrow. We have 4 legislators that said that they would be able to make it, which is not a large number compared to the number of representatives that we have in the area, but it's a good place to start. So looking forward to that. And then we are still in the process of putting together a proposed budget for you. So I sent that email out to the group. We will have your budget ready for you for your first viewing on October 24th, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting. But that also means that we need to move the meeting that we had scheduled for next Tuesday with the administrators. So I know we had some conversations around moving some meetings, including the October 31st budget work session as well. So the meeting with the administrators, I would recommend that we reschedule that for the week of the 30th. I know that the Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 31st are off the table. But if we can look at our calendars to see when we can meet with the administrators on either that Wednesday or that Thursday.
November 1st and November 2nd.
Right.
And that's for budget?
Yeah, that's the time that we dedicate the whole meeting for a meeting with the administrators to go over their budgets, and the board can ask questions of the individual administrators.
I can't do November 1st. I have a state advisory committee already that night, but if I'm the only one, I can send my stuff out.
You said the 1st or 2nd?
Yeah.
I can do it.
I can't do it first.
Oh, good, I can't do that.
need a second.
The second?
I can do the second. I can do the second.
At this point, yep.
So November 2nd, 6 PM, do we want to do that
We're supposed to meet at BES.
at BES?
Sure.
Yeah, wherever we're meeting that.
Okay.
6, you said?
Yep, November 2nd, 6 PM. BES. Okay, thank you.
So there's no meeting October 17th.
Correct.
Correct.
And so we're gonna go the 24th and then November 2nd.
Yes.
Correct, okay, thank you.
So no Halloween.
And then the advisory folks will.
Yeah, we'll make sure they know.
So no, nothing else that I can delete.
That's all I have.
Okay, on the horizon. So, I think today they released,
Thanks, Keith.
when are we scheduled to have Silas come to do the, I don't know.
I haven't scheduled for the 24th,
Okay,
on,
And that's
on the
great.
horizon.
yeah. So the 24th, because the SAS, student assessment system,
Right, it's the state
Or
testing.
state
the
testing.
state testing, results, so he'll be there. Correct. And we also have.
I'll
Ken-
check with them to make sure that that night works for him. If not, it'll be shortly after. You need to see on the horizon.
Anything?
We did get a response from the Canterbury town officials that they'll be
Yeah.
able to attend on the 24th, so
Okay,
have them right off the bat.
excellent.
And then, just a reminder, the November 14th meeting is the one that we're asking to move to attend the plan for tomorrow.
Which is a Canterbury, planning board.
Mhm. And that is a big meeting.
Yep. Okay, so on the 24th, we
You can figure it out,
yeah,
yep.
date. Okay, all right. There's an enrollment report.
So these are numbers as of October 1st. These are the numbers that we use also for our state reporting, our beginning of year reporting. So you can see that our district total as of October 1st is 1,131 students.
Any questions about the enrollment report? Okay, next up is volunteer list.
Make a motion to accept the volunteer list of the sections.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes or abstentions? Okay. All right, internal policy, this is the first reading, so, the policy committee met. You can see some of the proposed changes, they're pretty minor, overall. I don't know if people have specific questions about them. Payment procedures is a strike through. Expense reimbursement, just making sure we have, pre-approval. There's nothing. The bank deposit pieces, it's because, They, meaning the schools, don't do their own deposits, correct, Debbie?
Correct.
So we needed to align some of this language to make sure they could be in a safe overnight and those types of things. And
So you're saying the schools don't make deposits?
Correct, everything comes to the
Right.
SAU office.
yeah. And then the safety program with the district's emergency response team. So we went in and kind of made sure our language was correct with electronic signatures and kind of how things are operating. And we have this district emergency team now. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this one. Oh, an accident report. So updating, we have a liability carrier and result in a claim. So that's, again, minor, but language change enough so that it needs to be reviewed. This is the first reading, so if people have questions, let us, anything you want to bring up here.
What is, in the cash and school buildings, vending machines emptied regularly? What does that mean?
So the food service has a vending machine, and they empty it every day. They can check and see what the sales are, and then the middle school now has a vending machine, and they will look and see how quickly the produce goes, so they can, or, the product goes, so they can make sure it's empty.
Okay,
For
yeah,
deposits.
so regularly is virtually daily.
Yep, they're
I mean,
gonna check it
if
daily,
not,
and if
yeah.
it needs to be, it will be emptied.
Gotcha.
Good question.
Is that a requirement that it's daily, or is that just our practice?
No, it's their practice to check and see how quickly it's going. You need some there for change, but, just to make sure that we don't have a lot of cash sitting in the machine.
Does the district work with Belmont PD for making cash deposits as far as being available?
No.
Okay, I didn't know if the amount of cash would warrant something like that. I only asked
You're
that
referring
the
to
town.
an escort, basically?
Yeah, I mean, the town,
Has-
down at the town offices, they work with PD on that because of the amount.
Yeah, we don't-
Good. Well, not good that you don't use PD, but good that it's
No,
not-
we don't have that
it
much
doesn't warrant
cash
it.
that comes in,
Yeah.
right.
Good, now I
Man,
know.
I'm down to 1,000.
We mostly get checks, but. Perfect.
Yeah.
You can see mark out casing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm exhausted, I'm tired.
I get it.
Mhm.
Okay, so you'll see this on the October 24th, these on the October 24th agenda for approval. Okay, next up is Appendix B nominations. Those nominations are included in your packet. They're the ones that don't have board approved next to them. So if people don't have, we can approve them in public. If people have questions of a personnel nature, then we would have to go into non-public.
Hang on a second.
Make a motion to approve the Appendix B nominations.
Second.
Okay, anyone? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Public communication and correspondence. Okay, we don't have anything for non-public.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are adjourned.